For 30 days, the first thing I ate every morning was tofu, plain, pan-warmed, a little turmeric, a little black pepper, sometimes folded into spinach. I am 60 years old, and I want to tell you honestly what happened, because it was not what I expected, and some of it I am still thinking about. Let me start with why I did it at all. I had spent most of my 50s treating breakfast as an afterthought. Toast, a bit of jam, a coffee, and out the door. By 11 in the morning I would be foggy, reaching for something sweet, and by the afternoon I felt like the day had already won. I kept reading about the places where people live the longest, and the same humble food kept appearing in the corner of every photograph: soy. In Okinawa, in the form of tofu, eaten almost daily, sometimes more than once a day. So I made myself a small, stubborn promise. 30 mornings. Tofu first, no exceptions. And I would write down what I noticed, the good and the bad, so I could tell you the truth and not a sales pitch. The first 3 days were, I will be honest, a little grim. Tofu in the morning felt strange. My mouth wanted sweetness and warmth and the familiar comfort of toast, and instead it got something plain and savoury and unfamiliar. If you try this, I want you to know that part is normal and it passes faster than you think. By the end of the first week, I had stopped dreading it. By the second week, I was almost looking forward to it, which surprised me more than anything else. Here is the first real thing that changed, and it is the one I noticed soonest. The mid-morning crash stopped. That 11 o'clock fog, the one I had lived with for years, the one I had assumed was just part of getting older, simply did not arrive. And once I understood why, it made complete sense. Toast and jam is fast sugar. It floods the blood, the body scrambles to bring it down, and the crash that follows is the body overcorrecting. Tofu does the opposite. It is mostly protein and a little good fat, with almost no fast sugar at all. So the morning, instead of being a spike and a fall, became a long flat line, steady, even. I had forgotten what a steady morning felt like. At 60, I had assumed the fog was the price of the years. It turned out it was the price of the toast. The second change took longer, and it crept up on me. Around day 12, I realized I was less hungry through the whole day. Not starving myself, just genuinely less interested in food between meals. The snacking, the wandering into the kitchen out of boredom, quietly faded. Protein does that. It is the most filling of the 3 things we eat, and it speaks to the part of the brain that decides whether you are satisfied. A breakfast built on protein tells the body, early, that it has been fed properly, and that signal carries for hours. I was not trying to eat less. I just stopped wanting to eat for the sake of it, and by the end of the month, my clothes told me something my scale confirmed. I will come back to the numbers, because I want to be careful and honest about them. Now I need to take a detour, because the moment you mention soy to people my age, somebody raises a worry. Maybe you are thinking it now. Does it not mess with your hormones? I had the same fear, which is why I read more than I should have before I started. Here is the plain version of what I found. Soy contains compounds called isoflavones, and they are loosely shaped like one of our own hormones, estrogen, but far, far weaker. The fear came from old studies done on rodents at enormous doses no human eating tofu for breakfast would ever reach. In actual people eating actual soy foods, the large reviews have not found the harm that the rumour promised. If anything, in the places where people eat soy daily across a lifetime, the long-term health picture is among the best in the world. I am not a doctor, and I am not telling you to ignore your own. But I stopped being afraid of a block of tofu, and the month gave me no reason to start being afraid again. Let me sit with the digestion for a moment, because this one I did not see coming. By the third week, things were simply working better, if I can put it that politely. Tofu itself is gentle, but the way I was eating it, warmed with greens, with a little fibre alongside, changed the whole rhythm of my gut. And there is a real reason for that. The bacteria that live in your gut feed on the fibre and the plant compounds we send down to them. And when you feed them well, they reward you. They were being fed better than they had in years. I felt lighter, less bloated, more regular, in the unglamorous way that actually matters to how a day feels. Nobody puts that in a thumbnail, but at 60 it is one of the things you notice most. I want to be honest about what did not change, because the videos that only tell you the miracles are lying to you. My grey hair stayed grey. The lines on my face did not retreat. I did not wake up on day 30 looking like a different person. And if that is what you are hoping for, I would rather you hear it from me now. The changes were quieter than that, and in a way more important. They were on the inside. They were in the energy, the appetite, the steadiness, the digestion. The things you feel rather than the things you photograph. Here are the numbers, and I am going to give them to you plainly, with all the caveats. Over the 30 days, I lost a little under 4 pounds, without trying to and without going hungry. My waistband loosened by a notch. I did not have a lab draw blood, so I cannot show you a cholesterol chart, and I am not going to invent one to impress you. What I can tell you is what I measured at home and what I felt, and both pointed the same direction. The morning fog gone, the afternoon slump softened, the constant low-grade snacking quieted. 4 pounds and a notch. That is not a transformation, but it is a real change from a single, cheap swap held for 1 month, and I will take a real small thing over a fake big one every day of the week. So why tofu specifically, and not just any protein? This is the part I find genuinely interesting. Tofu is one of the few foods that gives you a generous amount of protein, with almost none of the things that usually come bundled with it. No cholesterol, very little saturated fat, a good dose of minerals, including calcium and iron, depending on how it is made, and those isoflavones, which the research keeps gently linking to better heart numbers and, in some studies, to bones holding their own a little longer in older women. It is, in a sense, the protein without the penalty. For a man of 60 trying to keep his muscle without loading up his arteries, it turned out to be close to ideal. I did not appreciate that going in. I appreciate it now. Let me tell you the honest mechanics of how I actually ate it, because I think the practical part is where most people give up. I bought the firm kind, not the soft, because it holds together in a pan. I pressed out the water with a clean cloth, which takes 2 minutes and makes all the difference to the texture. Then I warmed it in a dry or lightly oiled pan with turmeric for colour, black pepper, a pinch of salt, and most mornings a big handful of spinach thrown in at the end to wilt. Some mornings I crumbled it so it looked like scrambled eggs, which honestly helped my brain accept it as breakfast. The whole thing took under 10 minutes. It cost a fraction of what a cafe breakfast costs. And once it became routine, it required no thought at all, which is the only way any habit survives past the first burst of motivation. I want to say something about that, about willpower, because it is the thing everyone gets wrong, myself included for most of my life. The first week ran on willpower, and willpower is a terrible long-term fuel. It runs out. What carried me through the second, third, and fourth weeks was not discipline. It was routine. By then, I was not deciding to eat tofu each morning. The decision had been made once, on day 1, and after that, the mornings just happened. That is the real lesson of the 30 days, more than any single benefit. A small thing, repeated until it stops being a decision, quietly rewrites how you live. The tofu was almost beside the point. The repetition was the medicine. Now, would I tell you to do exactly this? Not blindly. If you are on medication, if you have a thyroid condition, if you have any reason to wonder, talk to your own doctor first, because I am one person and you are another, and the only honest advice is to know your own body. But if you are like I was, 60 and foggy and tired of the 11 o'clock crash, I think a plain savoury protein breakfast is one of the gentlest, cheapest experiments you can run on yourself. You do not even have to love tofu the way I have come to. You just have to be curious enough to give the mornings a different fuel and watch what your own body does with it. I keep coming back to Okinawa because that is where this idea took root for me, and I think the context matters. The people there did not eat tofu because a study told them to. They ate it because it was cheap, it was local, it kept, and it filled the belly. For generations it was simply what was on the table, morning and night, alongside the vegetables from the garden and a little fish now and then. And those same people became some of the longest living on earth, with rates of heart trouble and certain cancers far below what we see here. No single food explains a whole culture's lifespan, and I would never claim otherwise. But when researchers went looking for what was different about that table, the daily soy kept coming up. I was not trying to become Okinawan in 30 days. I was just borrowing one plain habit from a people who clearly knew something about staying alive and well into deep old age. There is a bone story here too, and at 60 it is one I pay attention to. We lose bone as we age, quietly, with no symptoms, until one bad fall reveals how much is gone. Tofu, especially the kind set with calcium, delivers a real dose of the mineral the bones are built from, and the isoflavones may help the body hold on to bone a little better, particularly in older women, though the research there is still finding its footing. I am not going to overstate it. But knowing that my plain breakfast was quietly feeding my skeleton, not just my muscles, made me glad I had chosen it over the toast. The toast fed nothing. The tofu fed several things at once. That is the pattern I keep noticing with whole plant foods. One forkful does many jobs. Let me be useful about which soy to eat, because not all of it is the same, and the difference matters. What I ate was whole soy. A block of tofu is the bean, curdled and pressed, and not much else. That is the kind I trust. What I would steer you away from is the processed end of the aisle. The soy protein isolates, spun into bars and shakes and fake snacks, stripped of their fiber and loaded with other things. When people say soy is bad, they are very often, without knowing it, talking about that processed stuff, not about a plain block of tofu or a bowl of edamame or a spoon of miso. Eat the bean in a form your grandmother would recognize. That single rule sorts out most of the confusion. I also want to address the muscle question head on, because it is the real worry for anyone over 60. After our 50s, the body starts shedding muscle unless we give it two things: protein and a reason to keep the muscle, which is movement. I kept walking through the month, nothing dramatic, but I kept moving. And the protein from the morning tofu, spread with the protein I ate later in the day, gave the muscle the raw material to hold its ground. I did not get stronger in 30 days, I want to be clear, but I did not lose ground either, and at my age holding ground is its own kind of victory. The image of the frail old person living on tea and toast is not destiny. A lot of that frailty is simply a body that was never given enough of the right material to rebuild itself. Tofu gave mine some of that material every single morning for a month. Can I tell you about the diary itself, the actual notes? Because reading them back surprised me. Day 1, I wrote, "This is strange. I miss my toast." Day 5, easier today. Less fog this morning. Day 9, did not snack before lunch. Did not even think about it. Day 14, sleeping better, or maybe I am imagining it. Day 20, waistband looser. This is real. Day 26, I do not want to go back. The arc of those notes tells the whole story better than any chart could. It starts in resistance and ends in something close to gratitude. And the turn happened somewhere in the second week, which is exactly where most people quit anything before the good part arrives. If you take one practical thing from me, let it be this. The hard part is shorter than you fear, and the reward is on the other side of it, not far in. A word on the protein powders, since I know someone is thinking it. I could have hit my protein with a scoop of powder in water and saved myself the pan. I chose not to, and I would choose the same again. The powder gives you the protein and nothing else. The tofu gives you the protein wrapped in minerals, in those plant compounds, in the fiber when I ate it with greens, in a form the body has eaten for thousands of years and knows exactly what to do with. We have a habit of stripping foods down to a single nutrient and selling it back to ourselves in a tub. The whole food was the better deal all along, and it cost less. What stays with me, a while after the 30 days ended, is how small the change was and how much it shifted. I did not buy anything expensive. I did not suffer. I did not deny myself in any way that felt like deprivation after the first week. I simply moved the protein to the front of the day and let the rest follow. And the day followed. The energy held, the cravings settled, the fog lifted. At 60, after years of assuming that this was just how it felt to get older, I learned that a lot of what I blamed on age was really just what I was eating at 8 in the morning. I have kept it up, by the way. Not every single morning, because life is not a laboratory, and I am not going to pretend it is. But most mornings, the tofu and the greens are still the first thing I eat, because the alternative, the fog and the crash and the wandering hunger, is no longer a trade I am willing to make. 30 days was the experiment. What came after is just how I live now. There was one more thing in the diary I almost left out, because I cannot fully prove it and I do not want to oversell. My sleep got steadier in the back half of the month. I fell asleep easier and woke less in the night. Now, I changed only one thing, so I cannot swear the tofu did it. It may have been the steadier blood sugar through the day, which tends to settle the body by night. It may have been that I was snacking less in the evenings, which is hard on sleep at any age, or it may have been coincidence. I am telling you because it happened, not because I can explain it, and I would rather give you the honest, messy truth than a tidy claim I cannot stand behind. Watch your own sleep if you try this. You may notice nothing. You may notice what I did. One last thing about the money, because I think it is the part that should win people over and rarely gets mentioned. A block of tofu costs about the same as a couple of eggs, and it gave me 4, sometimes 5 breakfasts. Add the spinach and the spices, and you are still spending less than a single coffee from a cafe. Over the month, my breakfasts cost me almost nothing, and they did more for me than the breakfasts I used to pay more for. That is the quiet scandal of eating well. We have been sold the idea that health is expensive. that it lives in supplements and special powders and organic everything. My 30 days said the opposite. The cheapest thing in the chilled aisle outperformed the habits I had paid more to keep. If you are on a fixed income, and many of you watching are, that is not a small detail. It might be the whole point. If you want to try something like this without piecing it together yourself, I put the whole approach into a simple 30-day plan, with the mornings mapped out, the grocery lists worked out, and the costs already counted. So all you have to do is follow it. It is called the 30-day plant way, and the link is in the description below. Start tomorrow morning with one plain breakfast and come back and tell me what your own 11 o'clock feels like. I would genuinely like to know.